So this is Wells. I'm standing in front of all of my, well, what's left of the machinery that was in the gold mine circa 1930. And they're hauling quite a bit of it away, so probably our last chance to get some good footage of all the different bits and pieces that were part of the mine machinery. And of course it's gold mining, so, and at what, currently about $2,000 an ounce, it's all the rage again here. So I love rusty things, so we've been taking lots of shots. And maybe we'll do some gel plate printing with some of the shots that we got today. Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline Studio. I'm Sybille Muschik. Today we're talking about the handmade paper that we did in the last episode in 19A, and I just want to show you this image. This is taken at the Wells dump. We did some shooting there. We'll be talking about that a bit more later. And this is one of the implements. It's a gold mine machinery dump, and I did a little stencil of it, working more with design, and I used a pen to incise some of the lines, which we'll print. And we're going to be doing that on some of our handmade paper. We have quite a stack of it now, and some of it we will be gel plate printing, some will be transfers, some I'll just leave as is. It's going to be a fun session. Please join me, and we'll see you at the plate. So here's the paper that we produced. This is the first sheet. It was done on the felt, and you can see the lovely texture, and notice how white it is. In the vat it was really quite gray. And just turning it over, here's all the little bits and pieces that I had in there. Here's the next sheet, and I think this would put on cloth. Here's the other side. You can see the texture of the cloth a little bit, and not quite so many of the bits and pieces of paper that we had. This was one that was done on canvas, and it picked up the color of the canvas on the edges. So again, a really nice texture. I'll put it to the side a little bit so you can see the texture. Here's this, you can see the texture of the screen. This was put on really smooth paper. Actually, it was a plastic sheet, and I had put the rose petals in. They're nicely embedded. This because it was on plastic, is very, very smooth, and it has I think it smells a little bit of the rose petals. Then we started with the leaves, and our leaves, just you can see how nicely they imprinted on the paper. Here's the other side. So that's the debossing, and I'm not sure you can see that extra leaf on the side here. I think it's more visible on here. There we are. So it's a lovely piece. You could probably embellish this a little bit, but I just like it the way it is. The piece de resistance, this is my little tree. I'll just show you. This is what I put on the paper, and then it made the impression, you see. Just left it on there to dry. Added a little bit of sparkle, and you can see the nice edges. This is a very frameable piece and would make a lovely gift. Again, this is on a smooth, just a plastic sheet again, and it's very smooth. This is also a very thin piece of paper, much thinner than the other ones. That was my last sheet. As if you don't replenish the paper in the vat, the paper pulp, then of course you're going to have thinner and thinner sheets. So I just let it go until we got to a thin sheet. It was more difficult to get off the screen, but I managed, maybe with a little problem there. Then I printed a gel plate print on it, and you can see all the lovely textures, but you don't see much of the image. So I might try printing on the smoother back and see what we get. I have in front of me a little cutout I did. This is just foam that you could buy at Walmart. And it's one of the pieces of equipment that we shot at Wells. We were in gold mining country, and about an hour's drive away from here is a little town called Wells, and in the 1930s it was the heyday for gold mining. Now with the price of gold the way it is right now, they're back at it, and there's a company that's taken over the area where this mine dump is, and we were lucky to get there in time before all the old equipment that's been rusting and deteriorating over several decades, is still available to do a photo shoot at, and it was great fun poking around in there. So this is one of the pieces of equipment that, as I said, that I've sort of made it's sort of like a wood cut in a way, or a lino block cut, but it's just out of this foam stuff, and we're going to be using it on the gel plate. And there's a specific method for that. So I'm going to do sort of a dry run first, just to make sure everything's working, and then we're going to use our handmade paper that we did in a previous session. And we'll see how it prints. Now, handmade paper is far more delicate. It doesn't take well to too much manipulation, so we'll see how it goes. I did one that I will post later on in the video, and also did some other things, and I will show all those things, all our little experiments. Okay, let's give it a start. Now, first of all, I want to do a background tone. So we're just going to start with a very light color. I have this wonderful Soho acrylic paint, but as you can see, it's pretty solid. It's called Burnt Sienna, and it's an absolutely gorgeous color. Soho is a wonderful artist color. And I'm going to put some golden open medium on it, just to, it dries fairly quickly on the plate, and the golden open medium will work for us. So we'll roll it out. And I'm probably going to add a little bit of yellow to that, just to lighten it up. And as you can see, it goes a long way, so we might have to scrape a little bit of that off. So I'm just going to take some of that off and put it on the extra palette here. We'll add a little bit of the yellow. This is Hansa Yellow Opaque, and just a touch. This is the golden open paint that stays fluid a little bit more, a little bit longer. So by mixing it, it will not allow the burnt sienna to dry so quickly. And I'm just rolling it in a circle to make sure that it blends together. Okay, that's pretty good. We'll just spray some of it off. Maybe take a little bit off there. I want it really fairly light. You just want a background glow. Now, of course, the old machinery is very rusty. And there's all sorts of nice rust tones in there, from yellows to reds and violets. So beautiful colors and some really interesting shapes. So if you want to learn how to do abstract painting, this is one way to do it, is to find an old dump site and do some drawings and then reproduce it in a painting or a print. And it looks extremely abstract, and then you're well on the way. So now we're going to print this. This is just regular bond paper. And this is our base layer then. And I'm just pushing it down, embroidering it with my Baron, just so we get a nice layer. Okay, so here's our base coat, and I'm just going to get that out of the way. And tiny little glitch there, but I don't think that's a problem. There's maybe a fuzzle or something there. All right, so the next layer, and I'm not going to even take that off. The next layer is going to be black. And by allowing that to mix, this is the carbon black fluid acrylic. Again, I want to add a little bit of the medium, the open medium, just a few drops. And it's the same problem. It's almost ink-like, and it dries very quickly on the plate. So you want it to stay open for a bit, because you're going to be moving the paint, and I'll show you exactly what I mean in a minute. Okay, now place your... Now, if you look closely, I've impressed some lines in here, so you want that to go down. And I cut this 5 by 7, and I'm just going to push that down so it makes a big impression. Whoops, we slid a little bit, but that's okay. That will give us a strange look. Now what we're going to do is this is why it doesn't matter so much that we've had it slide a bit. We're going to remove the paint in all these spaces, and that's why you need it to be open. So just take a paper towel, and just remove the paint in between the spaces. What you want this to be is as graphic as possible, and still have, that printmaking quality to it. So it looks an awful like a woodcut or a lino block cut, and you haven't worked nearly as hard. It's very easy to, to carve this spongy stuff. Whereas with wood, you need very special tools, cutting blades that you need to sharpen very carefully. I have done a fair amount of lino block and woodcut as a printmaker, and they're lovely, especially if you're working in 3 or 4 colors or more. So I'm just shoring up some of these edges, and there was a few little holes. Okay, so then you remove that. And then we're going to print that. You just have to line it up. And we'll see how that turned out. Maybe it's sliding a little bit. We'll create a whole new thing that we can explore. Happy accidents, you never know. Actually, it does look pretty incredible. So isn't that fun? And look how abstract that is. And it actually is just a spoke of some kind, you know, with other stuff around it. And it just has a lovely quality to it. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll take the risk with the handmade paper and see if that works. Okay, the first one turned out, with the sliding even, that was interesting. It made it more three-dimensional. So it's not that we discovered something new. I've done it before, but it is interesting. Okay, so we're going to do some ultramarine blue here. Again, the golden open. Just put a kind. I didn't even clean the plate. You don't really need to. That'll just be interesting stuff in the background. And I didn't brayer off my roller very much, so again, we're going to just keep that background fairly light. And it'll have, because there's some black involved now, it will have sort of that old metallic look, which is antique-y look, which is all to the good. Right, let's print that. I'm just lining up my paper with the top of the little plexi plate I have underneath the, and that should help us register pretty well. And just making sure we're getting a good impression here. Always make a good impression. So here's our base. That's looking very nice. Some few little interesting points in there. Okay, so now we try the black. We could have used Payne's gray, but that's carbon black works well. And this is just the fluid acrylics, as I said. Rolling it out. And let's not forget our medium, just in case. I always close it off because if it happens to fall over, it's not going to spill all over the place. Okay, placing. Again. And just pressing. I'm not going to let it slide down this time. We'll just see how that looks. And again, we will take off some of the stuff. Even deli paper and other things that you put on top won't work because this little cutout is quite high. You pretty well have to dab it off. If you used, you know, a different medium of some kind, Tyvek, you know, thinner plastic that you can buy, then it may not be such an issue, but in this case we have to do what we can. And then just clean up edges. That's to keep it brighter, otherwise the black will darken it down quite a bit. I'm not taking everything off, and some of these marks that you're making actually add interest. Then removing. And see, leaving some of the paint, I guess we can take it off this hole a little bit. and the background isn't interfering with the design. Right, printing and lining up. Now you could do this with any variety of imagery, of course. I mean, you don't have to go to a mining dump necessarily like we did. You could do shapes of any kind. What's fun is to go to a tire shop and look at all the tires and the treads and things. I've taken lots of photographs of that kind of thing. And then if you reproduce that idea, so there you are. I'll just turn the light box off so you have a better view of it. Now blue is very interesting, isn't it? It looks very metallic and industrial, rather like that. All right, and now the finale. Cross your fingers. We're going to do it on the handmade paper. Here's a piece. This is the smooth side, and it should work. Now, what should we do it on, the blue or the red? What do you think, Josh? What do you like?
Try the red.
Try the red. Okay. Yes. Well, I've put the burnt sienna on with a little bit of the medium. Going to roll it out. And keep it light. These prints have a fair amount of the air of mystery to them. They just, these mysterious shapes and strange spaces. And they're not quite wheels, they're not quite spokes. They're sort of alien looking, like some aliens dropped some kind of strange thing down. And I guess the deterioration helps that quality. Okay, we have a good base, I think. And now I have cut this on my cutter, so what I'm going to do after the print is finished is I'm going to bend it down on these straight edges, and then I will just tear it by hand so we get this nice deckled edge that we get from making the paper. So we're going to just use that as our gauge for doing the print. And quite a lot of texture on the opposite side. I cooched it. Cooching is that process where the paper is placed on top of a surface. And now we're just going to, now you do have to be careful. Sometimes some of the paper stays behind, but it looks pretty good. Now again, we're just going to add black, and I'm not cleaning the brayer and I'm not cleaning the plate. So the black will just mix with the red. That only adds to that sense of age and decrepancy. And I've sort of roamed around this place every once in a while for years now. Always find something interesting to work with there. I have done paintings. It's interesting when in the paintings I put foliage in so that you see how the machinery deteriorates and how it goes back to nature. And we're going to make sure we have the impressions on the proper side and placing it down carefully. I'm just going to press and make sure it doesn't slide. That's just to help get that patterning. Okay, it did slide a little bit, but remember that was sort of interesting. Okay, now we have to get the ink off again. It's kind of a messy business. You can't help but get a little on your fingers. Almost has an organic look to it. That's because I did a lot of curvy linear lines, like in here and so forth. You can almost establish brush stroke like marks here if you want. I mean, you could remove this with a brush and give it even more of an interesting character. Something to try, I guess. So I think we have most of it done. Looking good so far. Not too much to wipe back. Maybe up in here. Okay. We didn't have to line it up with an image underneath, thank goodness. Now it's just a question of getting this to work. I'm just going to rub some sections with my hand. And hopefully it lines up with the edge of what we did before pretty well. Okay. Very gently. Okay, we'll have to turn the light table off. So there you go. It pulled up a little bit in here and didn't quite give as much of an impression of the wheel as I wanted to, but it's not bad. And I think what we can do is reprint. Okay, so what I'm going to do is reprint it that way, and I'm sure we won't be able to get it totally registered, but it will get sort of a dimensional look to it. So once more, and that's the thing with handmade paper is as it pulls off, it may not grab all the ink. So just a question of, the other thing you can do, of course, is just ink the plate and put it down in position and try it that way. I'm not sure it's going to work. I think we're going to have to do it the other way. Okay. But that is the way you can go, is to just ink the block here as if it were a lino block, and then put it directly on the paper. You might get a much nicer impression. So I'll just try this again. And I'm just going to put it down by hand. This time I don't want it to move at all. And then lift up. And let's remove. You don't want the details around the machinery, the negative spaces. These are all negative spaces. Talked about this before in previous videos. The things, not that you could actually name some of these bits and pieces, but they have, you know, have more of a quality of something you could name possibly. And you know, a mining engineer would probably say, oh, that's such and such, right? Some kind of wheel or cog or bracket or whatnot. All right. I'm going to actually use the plate as a, because I have to really line it up this time. I'm going to put it down here and just make sure nothing slips. And it's nice if you have your gel plate on a little plexi sheet like this. I think there's some commercial ones you can buy. I just bought a big plexiglass sheet and had it cut up. So I'm just lining up my edges here. And hopefully we'll get just a little bit more depth to the color. And you can't let it sit too long or the paper will pull away because it's sticky and the paper is delicate. Okay. So there's a bit more detail, I think. Yes. Much nicer. You could enhance it, you know, with a little pen and ink, but I think it does what it's supposed to do. So now let's just compare with regular paper. You get a far more graphic image, and it all looks pretty good. So that's the difference. Have to say something. No. Well, here's another piece that I'm not sure what the purpose is, but with all the holes and the rusty bits, it's certainly interesting, and I'll have great fun trying to paint an abstract of it. So here's another way of working. I'm just got my previous image next to me here. I'm going to, this is the burnt sienna again. Just rolling it on there. Got a fair amount of black on the plate here and on my roller. Making sure there are no blobs. The heavy body paint, which is the Soho paint, really has to be mixed well in order to work. So a lot of, I just want to liquefy it quite a bit because we're going to be working for some time. So in this case we won't have a plate to work from, we're actually going to do it as a drawing. So I'm looking at this image and I'm going to try and reproduce it as a drawing. So you look at, for the main elements, you can change, you know, some of the layout a little bit to your liking. You can enhance things. I really want to enhance this wheel, and sometimes it's easier to do it in a drawing style. And if I recall, so I want to make the wheel much more prominent, and it has this little center area. And you kind of have to work in reverse. This is going to reverse, so that'll be a flipped image to that. Here's this, I mean, that part of the wheel was broken in the photographs, but we're just going to do the artistic thing and fix it. And there's this wonderful twisted, and it has sort of a knob at the end of it. And then there's another spoke here. And then there's all these incidental pieces. This one was quite nice with the little nut and bolt on the top there. And it had this triangle shape off. And then another piece of metal. I think there were some pipes underneath. Okay. And oh, there's one more little detail in here. And you can mess with the paint a little bit too. And then there was sort of this triangular shape in the background. I'll just give it that. And it had an edge to it, so we'll just give it some texture here. And there was another little thing that you can draw right over top of something, you know. If you have this going this way, going out of the picture plane, then your eye tends to travel out of the picture plane. So what you want to do is reverse the angle and have it going this way. And there's kind of a little, you know, box of some kind, maybe an electrical box, I don't know. So you can mess around with it quite a bit, add more details, little pipes running here and there, that kind of thing. So very fun to do. You don't have to be really good at drawing to do this. You can do this as two-tone, and maybe the next one is we'll do an undertone first, just to get that feeling of it. I did this only as a, well, there is some bit of black mixed in with the burnt sienna, so it's not entirely. And that's what you get. So some of the blobs and things that happen give you this three-dimensional quality to it that I find quite interesting. We could take a quick, we can either let this dry and put another tone on it, which we might do. Actually, I think we'll take a break, let this dry, and then I'm going to run another color over it, and we'll print that. Okay, for the last part of this, I've got some antique white here and some gold, appropriate because it's gold mining area. We're just going to add that over top and see if we can pick up that base as a ghost print. Now this top layer should reactivate the bottom layer, but it may not. We'll see. Just let it sit for a minute. When you're working with a heavy body acrylic, it just acts like glue, and it just may not release at all. That happens. Just spraying off. So, oops, we have two sheets there. Let's see what happens here. A lot is experimental, and that's what makes gel printing so much fun, is you never know what to expect, and sometimes you have wonderful things happen. Let's see if it's going to pull up. Yeah, not so far. Just let it sit for a minute more. Should pull everything off of there, but I don't think it's going to. Nope. It's interesting, but it's not what we have in mind. And of course, our first one was quite dramatic. So this is called Zinsser Latex Extender. And what it does, if you add it to acrylic paint that's getting a little drier, it will activate it again. So we're going to try some of this. I'm just going to see what will happen. And see if we can release that base layer. And we may luck out. And then again, we may not. Let's see if we can get that ghost print. Well, it's a little more successful. Yep. I think that works. We haven't got everything, but we have a good amount of it. So I'm just going to turn off the... So that's our ghost print using this acrylic extender. And that's quite interesting. I would certainly work with that, you know, with line and ink and so forth. But we discovered something. So here again is the drawn image, and it has the white showing because that's the white of the paper where it scraped away the paint, and so the white of the paper is going to show. And this was a print from the Blanc. So either one works really well, and I hope you'll try it. Not sure what these are, but something rivety. It's riveting anyway. And I love the configuration, so whatever it was, and all the holes and things, very fascinating stuff. So the last thing we're going to do, just to show you what this little piece of equipment actually looks like, this strange wheel shape. I don't know what it was connected to, or maybe some mining engineer will inform us. You know, this would be great. Something that turns something, I guess, and has lots of distortions. Anyway, we're going to try a transfer. This is, I reverse the image, and it's in black. Not that reversing is going to do much, but I'm going to take a little bit of a pad here, and this is eucalyptus essential oil. It's very expensive stuff, as you can see, but it's one way of creating a transfer. So I'm going to put a sheet of paper. You don't use a gel plate for this at all. Nita Malik has a book out, and she does a lot of tutorials. We're just going to shore that up here about this process. Lots of fun to try. I haven't had a huge amount of success, but I can do it to some degree. So the idea is the mineral oil releases the toner into the sheet that you've put on it, and you basically just start rubbing. Now, some of the essential oils, I've tried it with cheaper ones, and the smell just is not agreeable to my constitution. This one isn't too bad. I like eucalyptus oil, but we'll have to put a fan on later just to clear the fumes. You can see the image coming. And you can check on it. I haven't taped down everything. And just keep working with it. I think that's probably enough oil. I'm getting very high here. I don't know where the lid is. We just put it aside. Then you can also polish some areas. Squeak. So to get details, you polish an area, and some people have great luck. I'm using a special paper called hammer mill paper, which is meant for this kind of process. So hopefully this will work for us. I want to get the spokes of the wheel particularly. And some of the little pipe details. So we'll see what happens here. Have a look. Oh yeah, it's not bad at all. Okay, just some corners here. So what you do with this is you can put type on it. You can cut it up into collage pieces. You know, there's no end of things you can do with it. If you're doing a painting, this could be like a small insert. That would be fun. I might consider doing it that way. Okay, let's take this off. And we'll show our result. And so that's quite lovely. It did a good job. Yeah. So, and of course, if you want to, you can go back to your gel plate and then tone it, you know, like a sepia color or something like that, or nice burnt sienna to give it that rusty. But I would wait for all the stuff to dry. And I'm now going to, because this is very aromatic, I'm now going to hide it somewhere. And we'll show it, of course, at the end of the video. But it's a lovely transfer. Probably one of the best ones I've done. So my transfers have dried now, and they turned up pretty good. This was the one with eucalyptus oil, and this is on hammer mill paper, and the detail, as you can see, is really good. And you just let it dry, and then, you know, it finally does a good job. And here, this was in my handmade paper. You can see all the little inclusions, and you can see where the paper itself didn't take the, you know, the image transfer all that well. Again, we used eucalyptus oil, and but I like all the aspects of it. Now we can work with this maybe with the pan pastels, and we'll see what comes out. Now this is from one of my stencils. This is much rougher paper, so the first work on the gel plate, all I did was put marks on the gel plate and then printed it. You can't see the gold, I don't think, but it has a bit of a shimmer to it. And this is from my, it's a little plate like this, but this isn't the one, it's another one. And then it printed very nicely, actually. And I was going to work on it with my pan pastels, but I kind of like it the way it is. So there you go. So that's some of our experiments. Here's another one on the handmade paper. Not quite so successful. This one is with this particular stencil. And I can work, you know, pen and ink and pastel and so forth. And we'll probably be doing that because, you know, it's all to the good if it turns out right. So So fun in the studio as usual. Come and join me for another episode here at Shoreline Studio. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.